Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel. We're going to look actually at an article CJ did over at ontexasfootball.com on Thursday. What needs to travel with Texas, not just to Lexington for Saturday's game against Kentucky, but really throughout the back half of the regular season schedule. We'll break that down here in just a second, but I want to thank the first of our two sponsors here on this edition of On Texas Football. The first is Von Lane. From Texas football Saturdays to NFL Sundays and everything in between, the fall is always stacked, and Von Lane is the smart way to get wherever you're going. Forget those TSA lines or fighting the traffic on I-35. With Von Lane, you board in minutes at luxury hotel terminals. Then it's just 22 big first-class seats, each with Wi-Fi, outlets, and an onboard attendant bringing snacks, drinks, and yes, if you're so inclined, even beer and cocktails. You'll arrive relaxed and ready for kickoff, the concert, or family time. And with booking open through December, you can also lock in Thanksgiving and Christmas travel right now. Go to vonlane.com, use the code OTF25, that's OTF25, and save $20 on your first ride. Von Lane, it's elevated regional bus transportation. CJ, I just want to start off by asking you a simple question. What inspired this? And you had several things listed. Why'd you settle on these things for this article?
Yeah, I think one, it's been kind of the deficiencies that we've seen so far through the first 6 weeks, but also characteristics of previous Texas teams that have allowed them to reach pretty high highs. When you talk about back-to-back college football playoffs, right? A Big 12 title in there, an SEC championship game appearance in year one as well. Things that those teams did well that Texas maybe has yet to reach so far, but I think has the capabilities, Jeff. And that's probably where I'm sitting out. Maybe the most optimistic moving forward is this team is starting to find an identity, maybe just a little bit. Now, if you're able to pair that with the talent and the culture, you have a lot of reason for optimism, probably the most of any point this season.
Feels a little more tangible doing it against OU in the Cotton Bowl than against Sam Houston in a non-conference game, but we'll see how it ultimately plays out. CJ, the first thing you mentioned, and I want you to delve into this, stay up and involved is your first thing. And one of my big takeaways from the Florida game was you talked about just how, quite frankly, lifeless the Texas sideline was. The complete opposite of what we saw in Dallas in the Cotton Bowl, especially during Ryan Niblett's punt return when the sideline erupted. You were in the building for both those games, CJ. Compare and contrast, and what does it need to look like going forward?
Yeah, it was lifeless. To your point, Texas didn't have much enthusiasm. They didn't feel like they were into it when one side of the ball or the other was on the field in the swamp. And I understand. You kind of got your lunch eaten on both sides of the football. It's hard for the other whenever you're not necessarily clicking on either side to be excited, but that's what you're going to need. All 74 scholarship guys on the road this weekend are going to have to stay up and involved. I look at it as a bench in basketball, up and clapping, as a dugout in baseball, on the fence into every single pitch. And I understand that you're going to have to sit down, go over some adjustments, etc., but stay involved, stay up, stay in tune. That's what I want to see. It was night and day versus that against Oklahoma. I know this is nitpicky, Jeff. It doesn't actually affect what goes on the field, but it shows me that you care, and it shows me that you're involved when you're not on the field. And that is something that I think you can point at and say, in Oklahoma, it was a big reason why Texas was able to do the little things a little bit better, get off of third downs, extend drives, not create false starts or shoot yourself in the foot. And then when the big play then came, well, that feels like a suffocation to the other sideline, and evidently it was.
CJ, the next thing on your list, look, if you're not into kind of intangible things, the next one is very tangible. In college football's ultimate line of scrimmage league, CJ, got to win in the trenches.
You have to. You have to win in the trenches. And look, the Texas offensive line, it took a step forward. And, Jeff, I wrote another article just saying I'm cautiously optimistic about this group. I'm not there yet. It's not what we've seen over the last 2 weeks, but it's taken the steps in the right direction. And playing Kentucky will ultimately give them another opportunity to take that leap. And yes, that is even without Cole Hudson at center. But the one thing the one thing I circled, and the reason why I'm cautiously optimistic, you ran the ball 32 times against Oklahoma. You had arguably your best rushing output of the season against a Power 4 team. I know Ohio State season opener, you ran the ball pretty well, but you had 8 runs for loss. You had 1 run from a running back that exceeded 10 yards. yards. And I know that one went for 37, so you don't have that 20-yard stat hanging over your head anymore, but you got to offset that quite a bit. And I thought what Texas did a fine job of, and maybe it's Trey Wisner, maybe it's that new duo of guards in the middle, but finding the 3 to 7 yard gains. Texas really hadn't been able to do that consistently this year. If you're able to go on the road and do exactly that and stay ahead of the chains, well, there you go. You're setting yourself up for success. You're setting yourself up to take deep shots down the field because defenses will have to care a little bit more about that running game. So that's what I'm looking to see. I don't think this offense, Jeff, is going to be one where you see the home run come via the ground game, but it can certainly set you up for a few in the play action pass or deep ball game as well.
And then on the flip side, especially on Saturday, from a personnel standpoint, just from a size and physicality standpoint, the one area where Kentucky can really challenge Texas and really push Texas is their ability to run the football. Look, this is not Mark Stoops' most talented Kentucky team, but what they've got kind of the same philosophy that Kyle Flood and Sark do. They like big people in the trenches with Seth McGowan and Dante Dowdell. They want to pound the football. CJ, they're going to try with everything they've got to get the run established. So Texas will see a pretty heavy dose of power football on Saturday.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I did a where's the beef exercise in the offseason. It's one of my favorites every year. Just go through which rosters in the conference have the most guys that you would classify as a big human. And for me, that was guys over 320 pounds. Kentucky right now with 13 on their roster. Texas has 8. So we talk about big fellows up front. Well, Kentucky right now on that offensive side of the ball, they actually have 11. And I know you can only play 5, but when you start averaging out what the average size is of that starting offensive line, you're looking at an offensive line, Jeff, that can move people based off of their mass alone. And I think that's a big reason why Kyle Flood stuck with a Connor Stroh and has moved to a Nick Brooks and didn't necessarily move a Cole Hudson out when you've had an experienced Connor Robertson at center. It's because mass wins and it leans on people as games continue. And that's kind of the MO I'm seeing all throughout the SEC this season.
CJ, we got a couple more things to talk about to finish this out, but before we do that, let's talk about IP Vanish. Nothing kills game day like a blackout or a blocked live stream. IP Vanish VPN keeps your connection private so you can bypass restrictions and watch securely, even on public Wi-Fi. And there's more. With IP Vanish Advanced, you also get a secure browser that blocks trackers, malware, and viruses, plus 1 terabyte of cloud storage to back up your files. That means your streaming stays private, your browsing is protected, and your files are always safe. Right now, On Texas Football listeners can save 83%, just a little over $2 a month for all-in-one protection. Go to ipvanish.com/ontexasfootball. That's ipvanish.com/ontexasfootball, or follow the link in the description of this episode. CJ, you talked about the offense and their you can't really rely on the chunk yardage play right now. It just hasn't been something that's been consistent. Likewise, the late great Bill Walsh, one of his big predictors in winning football games was winning the explosive play battle. And to your point in your piece, hey, if you're not going to generate a ton of them, that means your defense really has to limit the number of explosives they're giving up.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think Texas over the last few years has done a very fine job, Jeff, of playing assignment sound football, right? You don't see, gaping run holes. You don't see wide receivers running scot-free, or if they do, well, they're very quickly corralled. So I've commended the Longhorn defense for that. And I think against Kentucky, a team with the fewest 10-plus yard plays from scrimmage in all of the SEC, and two, the fewest 20-yard plays from scrimmage as well. It's a very dismal offense. It's not very explosive. They don't go for the home run or the jugular as you would think, which should provide Texas a lot of opportunity in the back end to stick to a number of Kentucky wide receivers. So that's something that I think will travel. And if that is the case, and Texas should find a way to create a sustainable lead, well, there you have it. You're playing right into your strengths defensively. You can get that pass rush up and going that had 5 sacks against Oklahoma. And that secondary is playing with a lot of confidence right now with the 3 interceptions, and probably should have been 4 or 5 in there, especially if you ask Jelani McDonald.
CJ, you already talked about the run game, and you've got the running game as your 4th thing that you've got listed. But specifically as it relates to the offensive line, as we sit here, 24-ish hours away from kickoff, what's your confidence level, one, in Connor Robertson filling in at center for Cole Hudson in this game. Again, he's already done it once this year,
Yep.
but again, this is a conference game on the road at night. So a little bit of a different deal. And your confidence level that I love the way you frame this. We've seen the worst of Nick Brooks in all likelihood.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. And again, he's only going to continue to improve the more and more reps that he gets in practice at left guard, which, as we now know, it's been every day since he's stepped foot in the swamp on the field for the Longhorns there. But for Connor Robertson, look, anytime you have a first time, really a guy stepping in to start on the road for the first time, you're going to expect some bumps and bruises. What gives me some optimism with him specifically is not many of those first-time starters have experience in a hostile environment such as the Cotton Bowl, right? He played all but about 5 snaps a few years ago, stepping in for Jake Majors, and I thought he did a commendable job, right? So taking that experience, going on the road, playing under the lights, I think is going to be something that he can look back on and continue to move forward with. The big reason why I sit here and say, okay, I do think that this offensive line will find ways to step forward. Look at where a lot of these big plays came for the Longhorns. It was on outside zone, which means you're not necessarily running right behind that center, right? You're moving to the outside of each guard, maybe off the hip of a tackle with a tight end attached. If that's the case, well, that's all staying the same. You just need the snap to get to where it goes. And of course, not to get beat from the middle of the field as you are reaching the outside edge. And right now, I think Texas is going to be just fine in the run game. Pass protection and identification and stunts and blitzes and schemes, that might be another conversation that we'll have post-game, Jeff. But in the run game specifically, and right now, that's what is most important for me, because Arch will allow you to get away with a busted protection coverage up front because of his athleticism. You can create some running lanes and some what I call free yards. Then you're setting yourself up for the big play that we talked about earlier.
CJ, I will give you the floor for a final thought here, and I'll end it with this towards the end of your piece. Said Arch Manning is growing right before our eyes each week, which for the outside world should be scary. Manning remains the conductor for the locomotive that is the Texas offense. He will dictate how fast or far the train will go. Right now, I sit with confidence levels in number 16 at its highest point of the season. CJ, again, 24-ish hours away from kickoff. Is confidence levels in 16 still that high?
Yeah, I think so. And again, that's relative to what we've seen since the Ohio State game. So it's not at its peak yet, and that's good, right? This offense is still growing. It feels weird saying that going into game 7, but that's where things sit for me right now based off of what I've seen. And in terms of how he kind of commanded that Oklahoma defense. You know, he felt like the puppet master, and it wasn't because of just hucking the ball deep. No, it was methodical. He took his shots when he needed to. He improv'd when he needed to. And obviously the escapability is something that he will always have. I thought that he made a major step on last Saturday against Oklahoma than what we saw in the swamp against Florida. And I think that's only going to continue to improve as he feels more comfortable behind that offensive line. So going against Kentucky, again, if Texas is able to establish some sort of run game and allow him to get under center and get that play action game going, that's when you see this offense really start to roll and the big explosives will follow.
All right, we'll see how it all plays out in Lexington on Saturday and beyond. CJ, thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to Von Lane and IP Vanish for sponsoring it. For more Longhorn coverage, get over to ontexasfootball.com. If you're not a member over at the website, you can become one right now. Sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access for $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing any of On Texas Football's coverage before, during, and after every Texas game of the 2025 season. For CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and until next time, welcome.